Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 96 of Mirrorless Minutes. And tonight is definitely one of our highlight episodes, especially as far as interviews and special guests are concerned. Tonight we've got on Joe Edelman. And if you're following anything with Olympus gear, especially lately, Joe's name, I'm sure, has popped up on your radar as Joe is massively making waves with his big transition into shooting with mirrorless cameras, Micro Four Thirds, Olympus a lot lately. And I won't go on and on about the Olympus side of that necessarily right now. I just want to introduce Joe. Joe is an educator, and I'm going to go out there and just say he's an entertainer, because if you watch his YouTube channel, you're going to smile at least
now you got the pressure
of the time, right?
The pressure's on.
Now I'm worried.
So I'll let Joe give you guys a little bit of background on him. He can do it obviously better than I can, but first of all, just welcome aboard, Joe. Glad to have you on the show tonight.
Hey, Jamie, Mike, thank you so much for having me here. I've been waiting to talk to you guys for a while. It is an honor, sincerely. Since coming into the Micro Four Thirds world and joining the Olympus family, so to speak, I got to tell you, you guys have no idea how much you have inspired me and kicked me in the ass. Being a studio guy, you know, it's easy to kind of get in routines and not pick up my camera that often and only do it when I've got a shoot scheduled. And a big part of my transition from Nikon was I wanted to use my camera more. I mean, I was at a point where I only picked my camera up if I was getting paid. Right. And while it's nice, that wasn't why I ever became a photographer. I became a photographer because I enjoyed photography. And so when I started getting into Olympus and Micro Four Thirds and I started following you guys are like machines, man. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I want to be you someday, because I was you when I was a kid. Like, I was always shooting, always had the camera. And I got to tell you, that's one of the things I'm loving about Olympus and just the whole Micro Four Thirds world. It's just so much easier. It's so much lighter. It's easier to travel with. So I keep watching you guys, and I'm like forcing myself to try and get back into that groove, because
it unleashes your creativity, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean,
because
I shot Nikon too, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
So the short, long story on me, for people that don't know it, I've been taking pictures for 42 years, which means I'm kind of old, and but I started as a newspaper photojournalist. I was young and stupid and determined that I was going to win a Pulitzer by the time I was 25. That didn't happen, at least, needless to say, because you don't kind of really get to pick that you're going to go do that. Right. But, you know, my career has taken me down a path of pretty much everything in photography. I've done portraits, I've done weddings, I've done product photography, I've shot food, I've shot fashion, you name it. At some point, I've done it and I've gotten paid for it. For probably about just under 20 years, most previously to my role as an educator, I actually made my living in a very, very niche marketplace, and that was shooting modeling portfolios and acting headshots. I developed kind of a whole business model around it. In other words, I didn't just take modeling portfolio pictures, because I had people that traveled from all over the country. I'd have people come from the West Coast to shoot portfolios with me in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and even people in New York that would come here when there's no shortage of great photographers in New York and LA.
Exactly.
So what I was kind of selling with it is I helped people put together a marketing plan so that they would go home with the pictures that we did, but they would know exactly what steps to take. They would know how to avoid the pitfalls, all the right things to do, so that they would get signed by an agency, get work, make their money back, which is really the idea. And then 2 years ago, I was at a crossroads of sorts. I was getting a little bored. And I still tell people, honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to do when I grow up. I just know that it's going to have something to do with the camera. So I had been doing a lot of workshops, been teaching, and I love it. I have a lot of fun with it. So I started kind of researching the idea a little bit more. I had put a couple of videos out on YouTube. If you ever want a good laugh, you can go watch my older videos. I call them the Fat Joe videos, because I was about 70 pounds heavier and really serious. So I explored doing a couple more videos, and I got a really good response. So I put together a business plan. People think it's like, oh my God, he's nuts. He just stopped shooting and did this. I put together a whole business plan. I gave myself 12 months. I have an amazing wife who agreed to support my crazy idea. And it was simple. I made my goals. I keep going. I don't make my goals. I got to go scramble and find clients again, you know, to pay my bills. So pleased to say I hit my goals in 8 months, surpassed them. And here I am, still doing it. And having a blast. I mean, I really am. And now, you know, getting to travel, do a lot of teaching. I feel like I'm a kid in a candy shop. So I'm just really lucky.
Right. And that's all from, like you say, Allentown, Pennsylvania, right?
Yep,
I mean, you're not in the media hub of LA or New York.
Not even close. They're fun places to visit, but
sure. Totally agree with you.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, there's something about that area of Pennsylvania. I don't know what it is. There are a lot of artists and talented people in, that
there is.
Allentown, Bethlehem area.
One of the things that I found about this area when I first moved here, so I'm not natively from here. I grew up and lived a good part of my life about 40 minutes south of here. And it is, there is, and I don't want it to sound negative. I used to call Allentown kind of the want to be artsy area because there's just so much of it. But for a lot of years when I was a kid, it wasn't supported here. So there were a lot of really
think
artsy
about
people
Allentown,
but it wasn't supported. In the last 15 years or so, yes, this area has just like blown up in terms of the creative options. And it's not just photography, it's everything. Any kind of art or creativity you can imagine. So I don't know if it's like, okay, New York's getting bigger and this is like overflow, but it is. I mean, it's a cool place to be. I mean, there's a lot of really incredibly talented, really creative people here. And even for me, like I said, watching you guys, even it's like, I like to kind of surround myself with that and follow that because one, I have a little bit of a competitive streak. So it kind of gets me off my butt. It's like, look, if somebody else is doing it, you can do it. It's not about being better because I don't like to look at photography as a competition. I'm not a fan of contests and that kind of stuff. For me, it's a passion. But when I see people that are doing it, it's like, wait a minute, why am I not doing that? Because I can. Right. And so that's one of the things I like about this area because there's a lot of inspiration. A whole lot.
Yeah, it's just funny when you think back what Allentown was. Let's go back 40, 50 years. Steel town.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at it and go, what happened?
All blue collar. Yep. It was just factory town. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot like exactly what Detroit was.
Yeah. Yep.
So
very much so.
So we got a little background on you on, where your photography led to, which was doing these really high-end headshots and actually developing marketing plans for people, which I think is just this bonkers genius business model. I love that. Okay. Totally different than anything I've heard anybody else doing as far as a photographer is concerned.
Right.
But your headshots did those give way into what you're doing now? Because I really want to show
true story.
That.
I talk about this every now and then, but I don't admit it a lot. But the true story of how these kind of crazy fashion or beauty portrait things that I do came about, I was bored. I was working with a makeup artist, doing my modeling portfolio work. She's a Russian woman who's actually from Brooklyn, New York. So this woman would actually get on a bus to come down to Allentown to work with me. She amazingly talented. Like crazy talented, and it used to drive me nuts because I couldn't keep up with her. But she was very bored doing because modeling portfolios aren't really that creative. A good modeling portfolio is actually really boring pictures. It's selling the model. If somebody looks at a modeling portfolio, it says, "Oh my God, that lighting's really cool," or "Wow, that background's neat," or even for that matter, if they look at the modeling pictures and they say, "Oh my God, I love that outfit," that picture actually failed. It's not doing its job. So a good portfolio is actually kind of boring. So literally she walked into my studio one day and in her very broken English and Russian accent, all excited because she was probably more type A than I am. She's like trying to tell me about this idea that she's got. And she's got this blue feathered boa with her. And I'm like looking at her like she's completely lost it. Like I've got no idea what she's trying to communicate to me. Finally, I was just like, okay. At the end of the day, if we have time, you can do whatever it is. So the end of the day comes, we finished early. She starts doing this really dramatic makeup on this girl. And literally, like, she's telling me I had to get on a ladder to shoot the picture. She had the whole picture worked out in her head, which is great because I had no idea where she was going. She basically sets this picture up and makes me take it. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, I had never seen anything that was exactly like it. I'll admit, the very first one I did, it had a little bit of a 1980s glamour shots feel to it. Not gonna lie, but there was a lot of potential in the idea. So we just started doing them, and literally it became part of our routine. Where at the end of a shoot, if we got through the day with time to spare, because she had to get on a bus to go back to New York each day, she would come, down by bus. So if we could get it in at the end of the day, we would concoct something. So our routine became model coming in the beginning of the day, and I had done tons of planning about the outfits for her portfolio. So we had all that worked out. makeup artist would come in. She'd start looking through the rack of the clothes, the model brought, or I still go to like fabric stores, and I go through the clearance racks and buy all kind of pieces of crazy stuff. And as the day would go on, we'd start talking about ideas. And sometimes it would be like, oh, this girl's got like a prom dress. We'd flip the prom dress inside out and have the tulle wrapped around the girl's neck or something, so it would be like repurposing an outfit, whatever. And then by the end of the day, we'd do the shot. And it actually just became the piece of the day that we looked forward to the most, because the portfolio stuff was
the real creative part.
and so it really, honestly, it just evolved. And fortunately for me, she's kind of like me in the sense of she's very competitive with herself. Like, people frequently ask me, like, what's the favorite picture you ever did? And that's where my sign off came from. My sign off on YouTube is your best shot is your next shot. Honestly, my favorite picture is the one I haven't come up with yet, because if I did it a day ago, I'm proud of it. But I'm over it already. That's what do I do next. Like, for me, it's the process, and I'm sure it is for you guys too.
Yep.
It's the act of taking pictures. I'm very proud of my body of work, but I'm more excited about what do I get to go and experience.
Next.
Exactly.
So that's really kind of how they evolved, and so they kind of fit. If we had to label them, my work definitely has a commercial feel. I always raise my hand and own the idea that I kind of suck at fashion. And the reason I say that is fashion photography is about the outfit. Like, a good fashion photograph, it's about mood. It's about attitude. It's selling the clothing, or it's selling the, the jewelry or the accessories. My pictures, even though they're crazy makeup and all that kind of stuff, the girl's there. There's frequently eye contact. So I'm kind of creating with the girl in play. A fashion designer doesn't want the attention going to the girl. They want
to the fashion.
So it's kind of a beauty combination mix, and admittedly, sometimes I call them beauty portraits. Sometimes I call them fashion portraits. I tend to say fashion portraits more often, because if you're into marketing, more people search for that than they do.
So these shots, when you, for one thing, they're all just crazy, wildly unique. And how much pre-conceptualization comes with those? Do you sit down and just start kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to play off of a chartreuse color scheme, and then, I want, some crazy glass objects in the scene. I'm just kind of curious.
So, yeah, and then I got to say, before Jamie finishes, and then does that mean you actually were sitting down thinking this, or maybe you were sleeping when you came up with that stuff? And, I got to know what you're doing.
It's all the above. Sometimes if I'm in the right mood, I'll just tell people drugs. It's not drugs. So, I don't plan these out too much. So more recently, since I started doing all the YouTube stuff, and I try to do 2, sometimes 3 of these shoots a week.
Wow.
Well, for 2 reasons. So reason number 1 is because I need to support my YouTube videos. Reason number 2 is because of what I do on YouTube and everything else. One of the rewards, if you'll call it that, when I switched to Olympus, the folks at Olympus reached out and they asked me if I would be interested in speaking for them at imaging and at WPPI, which has been a ton of fun, and I love it. But what I realized as soon as I said yes, really excited, was, okay, they're going to pay me to get on a stage, talk about their cameras. I've only been using them for a few months, and I've got like 6 pictures. Like, holy crap, I have no portfolio anymore. Like, so that was like this moment of sheer panic. Like, great, the company likes me. I get to talk about this stuff, but I don't have many pictures to show. So I literally, which I'm having a lot of fun because of it, I literally kind of said, you know what? I've got to put my Nikon portfolio on the shelf, and I got to build a new portfolio from scratch. And part of it is, honestly, it's a self-challenge, because it's funny, when I switched to Micro Four Thirds and Olympus, I thought people were going to rip me. You guys know how the YouTube. I thought people were going to rip me to shreds. I can honestly say people were actually very supportive on both sides of the fence. Even the Sony and Nikon and Canon users were actually rather supportive. But as I would meet people, the funny part of it is, to the very last person, people will come up and they'll be like, did you really sell all your Nikon stuff? like I'm just making it up on YouTube, right? I swear to God, there is not a Nikon product in my house. Like, there just isn't. It's gone. Okay. So, literally, it's been kind of cool to like give myself this challenge of like, okay, I want to prove to people you really can do this stuff. Like, honestly, one of the coolest things in my career happened because of Olympus. When Olympus asked me to speak at WPPI, I thought that was neat. But then they reached out to me and they said, could we have a couple of your images for the trade show? I was like, oh, sure. No problem. I had no idea. When I got to WPPI, one of my images was printed 8 feet wide by 6 feet tall on the back of the booth. Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I mean, I've had pictures on billboards and that before, but number one, like, it's the camera company using it. I'm sorry, I don't care what camera company is. That is awesome. You guys have had similar experiences, obviously being visionaries. But the other thing that I loved about it, and literally the whole 3 days at WPPI, people are asking me that same question at the booth. And I'm like, come here, come for a walk. And I'm taking around the back of the booth. It's like, okay, do me a favor. You stand here. So standing there, you're about 15 feet away from the picture. Right. Like, you tell me if you can count the eyelashes or not. And the cool part is you could stand there with your eyes and just count the eyelashes in the image. And it's a micro 4/3 image. So I'm actually having a lot of fun proving to people, like, you can do all this stuff. Like, you simply can. And I've always been a big one to push the idea, look, you don't have to have the biggest and best gear. You don't have the most expensive gear. And in part, I wasn't following my own advice. I was chasing bigger is better. I mean, I was in the Nikon ecosystem, you know, I kept going after the bigger camera, but finally I started realizing I was using this thing more than I was using the cameras. And it took me about 1.5 years to make up my mind to switch. And it was a lot of back and forth. Finally, actually, a talk with Gavin Hoey when I met him at PP Photo Plus last year, kind of helped get me a little bit more serious about it. But yeah, it was an evolution that, you know, that took a while in that sense.
And now it looks like you're having fun with some of the features that you find in these cameras that you didn't have available in the Nikon, like the live composite portrait work.
That's just love. Yeah,
and the live composite, I've even got some more stuff coming with that. That's really cool. Doing that video with the live composite, which and full disclosure, I reached out to both these guys to include some of their pictures in my video, because the cool part about live composite is there's so much neat stuff you can do with it.
Gosh.
But even just doing that video, I actually did that video really quick. Like, the idea hit me and I wanted to get it out right away. I didn't get to spend nearly as much time kind of playing with live composite as I would have liked to. So since then, I've been like collecting, and literally it's driving my wife nuts. Like, I'll go into Walmart and I'm going down like the hardware aisle, looking at all the different little LED lights.
I do that too.
So I've literally down in my studio, I've got this collection of really odd little lights and things that I want to start playing with. So I've got a lot more planned for
very cool.
That's really cool.
The mad scientist behind live composite.
So it's cool. Is now a pretty good time, I think, maybe to do I'd love to see some of your work, and I know everybody that's watching, those especially who aren't familiar with you, who maybe have watched some of our stuff but haven't found you yet, I really want them to see your work.
Can do that. So here, I'll let me share my screen here with you guys, and I'll bring it up so you guys can see this okay?
Yep.
So, all right. So I just grabbed, you know, you guys told me like 5 or 6 pictures. I think I grabbed 7 because I can't count for crap. So
perfect.
But just, it's kind of a good sampling of a little bit of what I'm doing now and been doing with YouTube. So this shot is actually, this is the very first beauty shot that I did with Olympus cameras. So this is the very first one. There is a video on my YouTube channel where I kind of walk you through this whole shot. And another variation that I did of it, which I didn't select tonight because I didn't want to show you 2 similar pictures, but one where there's material blowing all around the girl's head. And with shots like this, and I'm not trying to be modest, I'm really trying to be practical. Like, to me, I feel like a bit of a scam artist sometimes. And I really sincerely mean this. Like, I had the easy job here. You know, as studio lighting goes, this is really, it's a very basic setup. It's really simple. The makeup is the real work. The makeup is the stuff that, you know, really creates the shape on the girl's face, really gives it the impact. So, you know, I'm not trying to say, oh, I don't do anything, etc. No, but at the same time, like, part of what I love about doing this kind of work, it's not all on my shoulders. It's a collaboration. And I love to work with people that don't see everything exactly the way that I do. Because then what happens, there's a little bit of a tug of war. I insist that I work with people that are passionate about their ideas. And I insist that I work with people that aren't afraid to fail. Because believe me, when I do these shots, a lot of times it turns out miserably. I had a shoot yesterday. We did 2 different shots. I went into it really, really excited. The one shot will never see the light of day. The idea will be revisited. I like the idea, but it just didn't come together. And sometimes it's for different reasons. Sometimes it may be we picked the wrong shaped face. Other times I may have gone with the wrong lighting. Other times the makeup artist may have done the wrong colors or may have done the wrong kind of contouring to shape. There's any number of reasons. It kind of doesn't matter to me which one it is, as long as we're all really trying and really working an idea, because then even if we fail, it helps us move forward with that idea, to get to a better place. So, but this one in particular, I mean, this was the makeup artist that really brought this idea together. I used kind of a half clamshell lighting, meaning I had a soft box at the top and the front with a white reflector underneath, 2 lights on the background, just because I can. You could do it with 1 light to light the background. And then I had a blue rim on either side of her, so that was lights behind her, pointing forward, to create the rim. And then beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. It was really a matter of kind of working pose ideas. People ask all the time, like, well, where do you come up with poses and all that? When it comes to my beauty shots, if you pay really close attention through my work, I don't actually do a lot with posing. I do it more with camera angles. So I'll do, like in this case, a small shoulder turn or that. But a large portion of my work, the subject's just sitting looking straight forward. And I'm really working with what angle am I shooting at, left to right, top to bottom, or even camera tilt. Like in this next picture, the tilt that you're seeing, that's me. Like if you, that's in a video, I have a video of that. If you watch the video, the camera's clearly crooked. The camera's mounted on a tripod like this one, and it's tilted. So that's actually me putting the tilt in so that the girl can just sit relaxed. Because like in this particular case, she's got all this cellophane wrapped around her. I've got a fan on the floor below her that's blowing cellophane all over the place. And so my goal was just to keep her as relaxed as possible and not have to do a lot of work. So she's just hanging out, staring at the camera. My makeup artist is actually behind the camera, just coaching her to make sure her face stays where I want it. My makeup artist understands kind of my priorities with eyes. So for me, I like eye contact. I want the pupils fairly close to the center. They don't have to be dead center in the eyes, but I never want the pupils like shoved into the corner of the eye. And especially if it's a face turn, I don't want the pupil falling out of the face. I always want, skin there. So my makeup artist understands that piece. So she's the one actually behind the camera, just kind of coaching the model where to look. And I'm shooting tethered. So I'm literally on the floor behind the model with the cellophane and the fan and a wireless remote in my hand, so that I can, fire the camera and I'm watching the images pop up on the screen. And with the Olympus live capture software, I can see the live preview of what the model's doing as well. So I'm able to kind of monitor what I'm about to shoot and then see the images as they're popping up.
So quick question before we move on. You're a makeup artist. Are you always working with the same person?
Most of the time.
Okay.
So one of the ways that I keep coming up with new ideas, and believe me, I am not beyond cheating whenever possible. Okay. I have a standing rule, and I've done this for years. I have a standing rule in my studio. If a makeup artist, a young makeup artist, or even an accomplished one reaches out to me and says, hey, I'd love to test with you, I look at that as an opportunity to get something different. So what I do is I tell them, okay, give me 3 ideas and find the model. You've got to find the model because I want you to be really excited about the face you're working on. So I'm not going to find you a face and then risk you not liking it. So you find the model, you send me the 3 ideas, pitch them. And then I'll spend a day. I will literally spend a day and we'll do it. Sometimes, most of the time, it creates something that's cool and different. Every now and then, it's a waste of time. That's part of the process. But the overwhelming majority of my work, I'm working with one makeup artist. And honestly, part of it is, since I started with kind of giving her so much credit, which I really do give her credit, even this shot's a great example. Working with a good makeup artist, you have to develop a relationship. Especially with my Russian makeup artist, who I still do some work with. And the only reason I'm not doing as much work with her at this point is because she's more expensive. And, the YouTube stuff's a lot of fun, but it's not like you make a lot of money in the videos. I make my money teaching. Okay. So with her, especially since English was a second language, we could say like 3 words you know, we work together, we're going on 20 years now. We could say like 3 words. That's like 4 paragraphs of information. So, you know, for me, that relationship aspect with the makeup artist is it's really finding that understanding of how each other likes to work, what the likes and dislikes are, because and you always go through this. When I first started working with my current makeup artist, I would say, well, you know, I'm not a fan of this. In her mind, that is then a rule. And I don't believe in rules when it comes to creativity. So, you know, even if I really don't like something, well, that's going to be 90% of the time. There will be 10% of the time where it's actually going to be really neat. And so I want that person to be able to really understand more of why I don't like it, so they can feel free to use it if they think it's going to work, as opposed to, yes, don't ever do this, this, and this. And then the minute you put rules on creativity, you're killing creativity, period.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in that. Even if you do
Absolutely.
the history, if you do the history of those rules and the research of how those rules came about, those rules came about because of people that sucked and wanted to be as good as the better people. So they came up statistically with things that the better people did all the time. And they applied some math, and you know, it works to a degree, but that's not where the real creativity is. So, you know, so then this is the one I was actually talking about that Olympus used on the back of the booth, which was really cool. So,
That's awesome.
and you can literally, like, on the back of the booth, you can actually count the eyelashes on the booth, which is really neat. And this one, I mean, this is all the makeup. I mean, this is done with 1 light and a reflector. Like, that's it. So it's a gray background. The subject sitting just a couple feet in front of the background. So there's some light from that softbox hitting the background, but it's basically 1 light above her. You can see the catch light in the eyes, and then a white reflector underneath. That's it. So from a shooting standpoint, I really had a very easy job here, you know. So you asked about how much planning we put into them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this young makeup artist that I'm working with, she likes to get concepts together, which actually I like that a lot, because we'll kind of talk through the concept. So she's younger than my previous makeup artist, so she tends to use like Pinterest and those kind of things more. So what she'll do is she'll put together like a grouping of pictures where she'll send it to me. It's like, hey, so for this model we're going to do, she'll show me one picture. It's like, I really like the hair in this. And then she'll send another picture. It's like, I love the way they did the eyes in this. And then another picture is like, I love these lips. So it's like, conceptually, I want to take these pieces and then put them together. So what that does is it gives me a concept of where she's headed. Just like with my previous makeup artist, I still don't really know what's coming out of the makeup chair until they're about halfway through. So like, even when I'm prepping, when we're in the studio and I'm prepping for these, I'll do my basic setup. I'll get all my tether stuff set up. I'll get my basic lights set up. I'll have an idea what backgrounds, but I'm kind of watching the makeup come together. And usually when she's about 15 to 20 minutes away from finishing, and I'll ask them, it's like, hey, give me a heads up when you're about 15, 20 minutes away. That's when I'll start taking a really good look at what she's got going on and start making my final decisions about, you know, am I using rim lights? Am I throwing colored gels on it? That kind of stuff. And, you know, sometimes it's kind of more simpler stuff. This is actually part of a video where I did a hack with mag mods and actually took a Godox in 8200, which is aimed straight at her. But then I put a mag bounce on the front of it, but flipped it upside down. So basically the light is traveling through the mag bounce, but it's set just about 3 feet from her, which is really close. So it, you know, just gives me a nice light spread. And then there's a really bright light behind her, which is just blowing out the background. So it was just kind of a real simple 2 light, you know, setup, but, you know, kind of using a hack with a mag mod in a way that's not really, you know, intended to be used. This is the live composite shot.
That's it, man.
We did live composites, which was a lot of fun. So here's the cool part too, because I got to give this girl credit. Her name is Monet. This young lady who models this shot, and she's actually going to be in the next 3 pictures I'm showing you. She's the makeup artist that I'm working with.
Oh, wow.
So not to make it any more challenging, but she's really good at doing the makeup on herself. So she also models some of my shots as well. In fact, she's kind of hating me for it, right? Well, actually, it's not fair. This is her too. So there's a bunch of shots here, but she's kind of like, you know, bumming on me right now because I told her, like, I can't shoot you for a while. She's like, why not? I'm like, because I need to have some diversity in my portfolio. Like, I'll shoot you again, but I need to get a bunch of other people in here. So, but she's great and she does incredible work. Plus, she puts up with me, so that alone is huge. So, but yeah, so this was the live composite setup. So I kind of approached it actually from a lighting standpoint of just like I'd approach any of my shots in terms of how I want to light it, and thought of the background completely independently. And then so basically set up lighting, had some red gels for rims. I even had a red gel on the background. It's a black seamless background, but I used a red gel just to get a hint of red.
You can see it
over her
just
shoulders,
a bit.
just a bit. And then at that point, it was like, okay, let's, kind of light the background independently. So this particular one was with the Yongwano LED light wand, the one that's kind of like the Westcott Ice Light knockoff. And it was just a matter of, playing with some different ones. And I found you can actually do a lot of cool stuff even by bringing the light wand or the lights in front of the subject, because you can actually use the light to create depth, which is really neat. But in that short video, there's so much I didn't really get to explore. I mean, even the idea of working at different depths with the lights. So since that light's recording independently, if I were to back this wand up considerably and work at a smaller aperture, I could make a similar pattern, but with much softer, blurrier light. So what's neat about it is literally the potential behind this concept is almost endless. So I've been collecting all kinds of little lights in that, and I'm definitely going to go back and revisit this and play some more. I'll go ahead and preview one of the things I'm playing with, as I've been getting my hands on some little tiny LED lights and kind of projectable lights. And I want to try and do a series of shots where I'm using the lights in my hand to actually create the makeup look on the face. So I don't mean drawn makeup like this, but to do it where, I'm kind of blending colors and even shapes, because I can use little cookies on those lights to get a hard edge. And so actually, I essentially get even like a little pen light that projects like a shape in a color and that type of stuff. So that's my next thing that I'm going to play with. Now everybody's going to run out and try and do it before me, but yeah. This is actually also one of the very first shots I did with Olympus when I switched over. And this is Monet. It's just a kind of a simple portrait, added some blue gels, to put some color into her hair. And this is also Monet. This is a really insane makeup. So this shot special to me only because it's the first shot that I did with the 45mm f1.2. So I made the switch right when that lens was coming out. Perfect. So I actually pre-ordered it. So I got one of the first ones, that were shipped. And I'm not a big fan of shooting wide open in the studio because there's not really a need, right? You don't really have any depth to the shot. And if I ever wanted a little bit of softness, like on the shoulders of that, I preferred to do it in post. That way, when I'm shooting, I never have to worry about having one eye out of focus, that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a lot of fun with this incredible bokeh that this lens creates. I started looking for situations where I could actually create depth. There's another thing that I've done in some of my videos. Actually, I did it on the Olympus stage for those talks, where I took a piece of material that had sparkles like this, and I put it over the model's head and then put the other end over my head. And with both of us under the material, the model's kind of like waving through the material and I'm shooting, and the bokeh is just a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. So obviously, if you're doing people pictures and you're going to shoot at 1.2, while the bokeh is really cool, you got to pay a little bit more attention. You want to get those eyes on the same parallel plane as your sensor. As long as you are doing that, and you can see with this, even she's got a slight turn and everything still works out. So you get just a little bit of depth to work with, but not a lot. So you do have to pay a little bit more attention if you're going to do close-up portraits like this at 1.2. But if you add some stuff in, even in a studio like this, if you add some stuff in. So this was a shot where I set it up with strobes. I used the Interfit honey badgers, which have the LED modeling lights in them. So I started doing the shot with strobes, and I realized, so I didn't start out thinking f1.2. I just started out thinking, hey, this is a really cool makeup, and that's what I was shooting. But as I was watching it through the live preview, which is part of what I love about EVF, I'm realizing this looks cooler in the live preview than it does in my finished shots that are popping up on the screen. So then it was like, okay, turn the strobes off. Let's open that lens all the way up and go for it. And yeah, I just fell in love with this one. And so and I've done quite a bit since where I've really, played with that, which for me, wide open in a studio was like, that's nuts. I never would have considered that. But now where I've got stuff where I'm using things to create the depth, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And the last one I had, this one is a recent one that I just posted that people really liked. This is just honestly trying to have some fun. So there's a little bit of Photoshop work involved here, but not as much as people think. So I do have a video that's going to come out on this. So everything about the girl is straight out of camera. It's shot on that color background. It's a wig. It's a cosplay wig that I bought on Amazon for $12. I do some of the if somebody ever were to check my search history on Amazon, they would think I'm a freak. I'm always searching for weird things on Amazon. My latest one, and I haven't shot it yet, I found these cosplay wings that have these little rods that you hold, and these wings like open. They're really cool. So coming to a video soon, right? But so the sunglasses, you can see the beauty dish in the sunglasses. The it's a white foam core reflector underneath. The color that's in that reflector, it actually just picked up a little bit of that color. So I added to it. You know, I brought the saturation up on it, but that color was there, so I didn't add the color. The girl's just wearing a tube top. I just took some blue sparkling material, wrapped it around her. But I have these, you know, like the playground pits for kids where they jump in the balls.
Yeah.
I found these blue playground balls on Amazon. So I have another idea down the road where I want to actually lay a girl in them. But they've been sitting in the closet in my studio for a while. I'm like, I've got to do something with these. So literally after we did the picture, and this was my plan, after we did the picture, the girl went back to the makeup chair for another shot. And a makeup artist and the model both thought I was nuts because I went and I got a couple of these balls out of the closet, and I'm standing in front of the camera, and I'm literally with a remote control, dropping the ball, pressing the button, dropping the ball, pressing the button, dropping the ball. And I shot like 30 shots of these balls dropping to get some different variations until I got one that I really liked, because I purposely using a little bit of ambient light and flash so that I had some blur. And then it was just a matter of dropping them in different sizes. And literally one of those kind of little kismet moments where you have to be willing to do stupid things sometimes, or at least what seems like a stupid idea. After I kind of had it all together, the background stuff was, you know, on a background layer. I had cut her out of, even it was shot on that color, but I had cut her out to be able to give depth by putting the balls behind her and everything. I hit a radial blur, just like, it was like, I wonder what the hell will happen if I hit a radial blur. It was cool. So I you know, I went with it, and that was it. And it's fun. So it got actually a better response than I thought it would, but yeah, it was fun. So
oh, it's cool.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So that's
it's got a Hunger Games feel to it or something. I feel like.
Yeah. Well, actually, the fun part of that is I've had a lot of people, you know, come on, oh, it kind of feels like this, kind of feels like that. Yeah. And that's actually, for me, I love when that happens. So that's a big lesson that I try to teach photographers. A lot of photographers that are getting started out and they're trying to learn photography, they have a hard time understanding that when you take a picture and you share it, I don't care if you share it by showing a print to your friend or if you post it on social media, no other human being is going to have the same experience that you did. Right. Heck, I know you guys, like, you know, like Jamie, I know like you and Jerry James, you go out, shoot together. You guys can be standing in the same spot, shooting the exact same thing. You're not going to come up with the exact same picture, and you're not going to have the exact same experience, right? So
exactly right.
One of the hardest parts as a photographer when you want to show your work, so I don't care if it's in a gallery, Facebook, I don't care where it is. Once you share it, you have to be willing to let go of the control. You have to understand that not everybody's going to see what you see. Not everybody will appreciate it the same way. And there's a million reasons why. There's all kind of science. There's a million reasons why. So part of the reason why it's valuable to learn about lighting, and I don't care if it's studio lighting or natural lighting, the reasons why it's valuable to learn about lighting, the reasons why it's valuable to learn how depth of field really works and understand that it's not just a blurry background, the reason that it's valuable to learn about composition, and I don't mean rule of thirds and Fibonacci spirals, I simply mean what's pleasant and what's not, or even to use leading lines. These are the elements that as photographers we have control over, and we can use to control the experience that people will have. We can never completely control it, but we can certainly push them to see it the way we want them to see it and to experience it the way we want to. And that's the thing I think a lot of, you know, young/new photographers struggle with, because, you know, they feel that they should explain their work, and they feel like, no, this is what I meant.
It's the worst. Yeah.
You know, right. And it's unfortunate because no, actually you don't get to do that. Like, you know, once you show it, you gotta let go of it and realize that not everybody's going to like it. I don't care how good you are. Not everybody's going to like your work all the time. It just doesn't work that way.
That sounds like our communication at our last workshop, Jamie, in Atlanta, right? Remember when we were having this show, the show that we do, we have everybody review 6-8 pictures.
Exactly.
And we talked about it and says, you know what, this isn't a critical part. This is something we're all going to say something how we feel about your picture now, and it's not, don't tell us how you set it up. Don't apologize. Don't start with all that stuff. Just let us view it.
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely.
So,
yeah. Art is meant to be consumed.
Right.
Yep.
I eat it with a fork. You eat it with chopsticks.
Right.
I don't know where that came from. That was weird. Hey, before we wrap up, we didn't get a ton of questions, but we did get one at the end. It's our friend Brian Essler.
Yeah.
Brian wants to know, and I don't think we exactly really covered this, but he just wants to get an idea of where you find the inspiration for your shoots. Like something has to trigger that.
Brian, if I told you drugs, would you believe me? Not drugs. My wife would say I'm just that twisted. It honestly, it comes from all over the place. So I'll try and make this quick because I talk a lot. But to give you a little bit of backstory, Brian, one of the things I learned about myself a couple of years ago, my wife loves to do like antique shops and that kind of stuff, when we're out and about. And we were going through what to me is a junk store. I won't lie, but it was this old antique shop and craft stuff and all that. They had a bin that was full of old Look and Life magazines from the late 60s and the early 70s. And I started rummaging through the bins because I remember my mother used to get them all the time. And especially when I first got into photography, so it was like 1971 when I got my first camera, I would look through those magazines all the time and just really pretty much drool over the photography. And literally, as I'm going through these magazines, like I started to get chills because as I was looking at the covers and as I was looking at the fashion photographs, I was like, holy crap, that's what I do. Like, and in terms of like things like symmetry, I use lots of symmetry. And a big thing back then, especially in fashion pictures, people were really into symmetry and they were into bold, bright colors. Why? Because in 1971, we were just getting to the point where we could create really bold, bright colors. Okay. And so I was like, whoa, this is where my stuff comes from. And so that's where I started to grow up a little bit and recognize that, no, I'm not that brilliant and that talented, that it's the inspiration. So it wasn't so much that it was conscious. So first of all, to answer your question, we're all impacted by our experiences. It's what we see. It's what we think. It's what we feel. So that was a piece of it. And I learned that was definitely a big part of my inspiration because just the way that I approach a lot of my visual thought process, it actually goes back to kind of those early inspirations. And back in the day, one of the photographers that I loved when I first got started was a photographer, and I believe he's still alive. His name is Peter Turner. And back in the late 60s, early 70s, this guy was doing stuff. He was creating color with Kodachrome film that was just unimaginable. He could get color out of Kodachrome, and Kodachrome was great color. But he could do bold colors like nobody could do bold colors. It was amazing what this guy could do. Today, it can be all kinds of things. And sometimes it comes at the spur of the moment. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like the live composite thing. Yeah. Literally drooling over a tutorial that was on the Get Olympus, Get Inspiration section on their website. Okay. With these two guys. Pictures that they did. Jamie's got a picture that's a lightning picture from the skyline of New York. Mike, the one picture that I love that I showed in my video is a shot of the marquee of a theater in Chicago. And then he's also got, I saw, I don't remember if it's a video clip, but it's still where he used the live composite in a car going through a tunnel. Yep. And so I was like, I just switched over to Olympus. I'm looking at this and it's like, I need to go use this. And so at the time I'm thinking I need to go use this at night. Do like car trail, kind of the standard stuff, because these guys are doing stuff that's so cool. And it was literally just one of those moments where I was like, okay, so basically this is a shortcut for light painting. One of the things I try to teach people a lot, like when you see features like high-speed sync, people think the only way to shoot flash outside is with high-speed sync. Like, come on. We did the same stuff that you do with high-speed sync back in the 70s when there was no high-speed sync. High-speed sync is a great feature, but you have to understand it's a convenience feature. Well, live composite is a convenience feature. Absolutely. Essentially, you're doing light painting and things like that. So that's when it started to kind of click together. And I was like, God, I haven't done light painting since like I was a kid. And then I was like, what could I do with light painting now? And that evolved. It's like, backgrounds, done. And so that's what set me on that one. The shot with the blue balls falling out of the air, literally my ideas, all the pictures you see, and it's so trendy, I won't do it. But this is my alternative. You see the pictures of the women laying in a bathtub full of milk, in their face. It's like, that's a cool idea. But for all the people that are doing it now and so excited, like, look at this picture I did of this model in a bathtub for milk. I hate to tell you, Annie Leibovitz did it years ago with Whoopi Goldberg. Go Google it, right? It's not a new idea. And the fact that everybody's doing it now, I think it's great that people try it. I think it's great that people try to copy it. I feel bad when they post it like it's the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. At least acknowledge where it came from. Do your research, learn a little bit of history, and at least acknowledge, hey, here's my attempt. Until you come up with a way to make it your own, and then by all means, shout it from the mountaintops. Like, that's my approach. So the balls, my idea with that one, I saw them because they were cheap. Got them on Amazon, and I got a ton of them. I've got like almost 1,000 of these things. Is to basically like create some kind of pit where I'm going to lay the girl in it. And I don't want to do like the whole body. I want to do it like a fashion shot. And originally the reason I bought that blue wig was I thinking, oh, I mixed the blue balls, I mixed the wig. And then I realized having the girl lay down with the wig, it's all going to be too much. So, in talking with my makeup artist, we kind of came up with another way that we want to do it. But this was just kind of like an in-between thing. I had done my shot with this wig and the glasses. The model went back to the makeup chair. So I had some downtime. And I remembered the balls sitting back there. And I was like, I wonder what it'd be like if there were just like balls dropping out of the sky in the background. So I grabbed some and started shooting them. Same with the cellophane, the yellow cellophane picture that I did. I had bought those rolls of cellophane, just like I talked about in the video. I had bought them about a week before on clearance at a craft store. And so they were sitting in my studio. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do them. And I'm not ashamed to admit, the makeup in that shot, if you go back and look at that picture, it's got like all kinds of colors in it. It's really detailed. So the problem with like wrapping stuff around the model and that, you got to be careful about adding too much detail where there's already a lot of detail. And that was my problem. And in that video, I walked through that. If you go back and watch that, Brian, I show you that literally, I'm not ashamed to show how I get places. I show you the first couple shots that I did and what I was doing. And they were horrible. Like, I'll be the first to say they were horrible. They were just boring. And then it got just too busy. And then it got even more boring. So I show you the whole progression. And in the end, I remembered the cellophane. I was like, okay, let's try that. And that's when it started to come together. And at first, it was just wrapping the cellophane around her. But that to me looked kind of weird that it was like this cloak of cellophane. So that's when I was like, all right, I need more. And that's when I got the fan out. I guess, Brian, the short answer after that long description is I've learned to try and do stuff that I think is stupid. Honestly, if my first gut response is that's weird, yeah, I need to try it. And then I never stop with my first idea. That's kind of arrogant if you think about it. You take one picture and you're done. I'm not that good. So my first idea is always my starting point. And if I like it, then it's like, okay, I'm onto something. But the real picture is going to happen 4 to 6 variations down the path on that idea, which is that's how that yellow cellophane came about. So.
Awesome. It's so cool to get into the creative mind. I love this. Yep. So hopefully that helped out a little bit, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, Robert, I see your thing there about being envious of people like me. Don't be envious of people like me. Be better than me. Yeah. Just if I can give you one tip, Robert, don't be fearless. Just shoot. Just shoot and go for it. And if you think it's a bad idea, do it. Like I find, so I know you guys need to sign off. So I will say my parting words here. Advice for anybody. So many young photographers are afraid of making mistakes. You have to make mistakes. You have to make mistakes. And guys like me, guys like Mike, guys like Jamie, we're out here, we're teaching, we're posting stuff. Yes, we don't post all our mistakes. Yes, we don't show the bad stuff. I promise you, these guys have bad stuff. I have lots of bad stuff.
Lots of it.
But that's why we have the good stuff. It is because, and that's what I said in the beginning. Like, these two guys are machines. I envy these two guys. The work ethic that these guys have. And the cool part is their work ethic, it includes a ton of fun. Because it's clear when you, and I know you folks follow them, you see their work, there's passion in what they do. So, Robert, find what you're passionate about and don't let anybody tell you that that's the wrong thing. Chase that passion, have fun with it, but don't be afraid to mess up. The more you mess up, the more you learn. So
it's a good way to sign off.
Okay.
For sure. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I mean, I don't think we could have ended it any better, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on, especially after you already just finished up your show.
Right. That's all right, guys. Really seriously, I've been looking forward to talking to you guys. So
cool.
It has been great to have you on, and everybody who's been watching this. Hopefully, you're a subscriber to the audio podcast as well. I see some people had to dip out a little early. We forgive you for having to actually get sleep. We understand how that is.
At different parts of the world.
So you can either come back and finish watching the YouTube video, or you can subscribe to Mirrorless Minutes in iTunes or the Google Play Store or wherever else you like to consume audio podcasts. Just do a search for that. All of Joe's pertinent information for those who aren't already following him will be available in the show notes for the YouTube channel and on the audio podcast as well. So if you're not following Joe, why are you following us and not following Joe? Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Joe, again, brother, I really appreciate you coming out.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
See everybody in 2 weeks.
See ya. Take it easy.